Good evening, everybody. Just wanted to come on in and let you all know we'll get started in the next couple of minutes, about 7:05, to give a couple more people to uh, get on the call here. So uh, we'll get started at 7:05. At 7:05, we'll get going for tonight. All right, all right. Good evening. It is Thursday night. It's Thursday. It's open mic night. Certainly glad that we are doing well. I'm glad to see all the faces and wanted to just say hello and give a brief introduction for tonight's topic. I'll introduce our guest speaker shortly. I'm very excited about our guest speaker in the person of Brittany McGowan. I'll introduce her shortly. She's on the call right now. She's going to be our guest speaker on tonight. But I want to get on here just to welcome everybody to Open Mic Night. At Open Mic Night, we're going to discuss everyday and everything life. We're going to talk current topics that are influencing us currently. And so bring your thoughts, bring your pens and paper, bring your minds, and this is a place for you to kind of relax, kick back, conversate, and hear information that will grow our community. So I'm your host on tonight. I'm Thomas Warren, Jr. here in Dallas, Texas. And I wanted to, before we get going with our presentation, get a little background about tonight's topic. So tonight's topic is strategies and struggles of teaching during a pandemic, taking care of yourself and your student during a pandemic. And if you have somebody in your family that you know that are teaching remotely or in person, right now we know the virtual learning arena is something new to all of us. Teachers are dealing with a great amount of stress and workload as they navigate this school year and balancing classwork as well as balancing their home life. And students are having to adjust as well their time and meeting their friends. They might not get to see their friends as much as they want to. However, we want to make mention that virtual learning is critical in making sure a child is safe, that is being protected, and not a victim of child abuse or any form of abuse, whether it be emotional abuse, physical abuse, sex abuse, witness to a violent crime, or abandonment. And so tonight's topic is very important and right on time during this climate that we're in. As most of y'all may be quarantining or going to work or working remotely, this topic is so critical to all of us, no matter if you're a teacher or not. This valuable information will hopefully stick with you, and you can carry this information out to all your fellow educators that are teaching right now. So certainly glad that you all are here. Definitely want to give you time to let me know who you are and where you're from, and if this is your first time at Open Mic Night. So I see a couple people on here. I'm going to go live on Facebook real quick for all of those that are maybe watching via Facebook. But if you don't mind, you can take yourself off mute and tell us your name and where you're from, and then we'll move on forward.
Hi, I'm Jan, and I'm from
Jan.
Wascom, Texas.
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Having some technical difficulties. Can't hear you, Jan. Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
I'm able to hear you, Jan. I don't know about Warren. Thomas, I'm sorry.
Okay, well, my name is Jan, and I'm originally from Wascom, Texas.
Jan is one of our crew members here. She's from Wascom, Texas. Has been on the call for a long time, and so I'm glad she is on. My uncle Wayne is on the call as well. He has a son that's going to school and starting his first semester as a freshman in college. And so congratulations to him. Congratulations to all of our first year college students. Best of luck to you your upcoming school year. So we're going to get started with our topic for tonight. I'm going to introduce our guest speaker for tonight in the person of Brittany McGowan. Brittany McGowan is a University of North Texas alumni, class of 2013. Brittany was a previous caseworker for Child Protective Services that has now led her into the role as education specialist at the Dallas Children's Advocacy Center. Brittany is able to spread awareness of child abuse prevention throughout the community to keep children safe. Brittany, good to have you on tonight. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, and we're excited to get this information to you guys.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for being on. And so at this time, as Brittany is presenting, I'll be monitoring the chat. If you have any questions during her presentation, please feel free to ask, raise your hand, and I'll call on you, and I'll make sure that your question is heard. And we'll when we wrap up, if you have any lasting questions, I'll make sure Brittany's contact information is presented as well as mine, so that you can connect with one of us if you have any questions or would like more information in the future, or if you like one of her team to possibly speak at your local event, virtual event, or in-person event. So before we get started, Brittany, can you tell us a little bit more about the Dallas Children's Advocacy Center and what type of work you and your crew do there?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that great introduction as well. But yes, at the Dallas Children's Advocacy Center, we are able to have a multidisciplinary approach when it comes to child abuse in kids in our community here in Dallas County. So we are your go-to resource when it comes to anything law enforcement, child protective services, medical and mental health providers that are working on our child abuse cases on the investigation. So I'll give you a little background of how the Advocacy Center became. So before, say for instance, you had a child at school back when we were face-to-face, but say that child made an outcry of sexual abuse to their teacher, someone that they trust, someone that they know, right? So once that teacher gets that information, the teacher's going to say, oh, you know, I need to send you to the counselor's office. That's out of my realm. You know, that's a part of our practice here at the campus. So we're going to send that child to the counselor's office and say, hey, repeat that entire story that you told your teacher. And the child may or may not tell the entire story. So once that counselor gets that information, the counselor may say, oh man, you know, in our policy, I have to send you to the principal's office because this is something that is serious and we have to get the principal involved. And I don't know about you guys, but when I was in grade school, when I went to the principal's office, or you have to go to the principal's office, that means you're in trouble. You are one call away from making a phone call to your caregivers, to your parents, right? So we're going to get that child into the principal's office and ask them again to repeat that story. once a principal gets that information, the principal say, oh, in our policy at this campus, we have to get law enforcement involved. We're going to call law enforcement. They're going to show up in their full uniform, gun on their hip, and ask that child to repeat their story again, maybe in the back of a patrol car down at the department. So re-traumatizing that child. And also these people that are asking these questions aren't trained professionals to get the best justice and outcome for that child when it came to that child abuse case. So I'm going to definitely share my screen with you guys now. And Thomas, let me know if any sound does not work properly. But
Thank you so
I'm
much for
kind of,
explaining.
yes, and I have a short little video. It's
Okay, great.
about 1 minute long. It's
Okay.
about how cases come into the Advocacy Center. So it'll give them a greater insight of what Advocacy Centers do. And there's 71 here in Texas. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, we can see it. Perfect.
It started when I was 5. My dad would wait until my mom and twin sisters were out of the house. It lasted for years.
My English teacher would send me texts and messages online. Then she started flirting with me and I didn't know what to think. She convinced me to go to her house.
My stepbrother used to take care of me because my mom works at night. Sometimes he did things that made me feel bad.
The day before my sisters turned 5, I told my Sunday school teacher what my dad did. I didn't want the same thing to happen to them.
My parents knew something was wrong, so I told them what happened.
In art class, I drew a picture of what made me sad. My teacher told me she knew people who could help me feel better.
It was really hard to talk about what happened, but my teacher heard me and helped me. Do you hear me? Do you see me?
Do you hear me?
Do you see me?
Children and families impacted by abuse are not alone.
They are seen and heard by hundreds of local professionals
dedicated to protecting children across the state of Texas.
These professionals jointly investigate and prosecute child abuse cases while supporting these 60,000 children and their families with services and healing.
We are police officers,
counselors,
child protection professionals,
doctors, lawyers, and lawmakers.
and we support these brave children.
We're committed to addressing the complex issue of child abuse in Texas.
But we can't do it alone.
It takes all of us.
Join our collective effort to protect children in your community.
Will you listen? Really listen?
Will you see?
Really see?
All right, because that kind of brings it all back together. The different things that we are here for in our community. There's resources that are going to address child abuse and make sure that everybody's working together to get the best outcome for that child. And also, they're not offending family members, those protective caregivers, just like yourself, just for tuning in today. I know that you are in tune to learning more about keeping kids safe, and especially in this new pandemic that we're facing. So, if it's okay, Thomas, did you want me to keep on rolling?
Yes, you can. You can. The video was awesome. It definitely woke me up because I think a lot of times we forget about what children are going through. And like you mentioned before, history brings up how children were unable to feel safe talking about their story to a professional, right, who's trained to talk about hard stuff, so to speak. So when you mentioned like police officers speaking to kids, A lot of times, out about a police officer, especially right now, it's not, it's not always good things. So
Right, right.
it's so good to know that there's an agency out there that's feet on the ground, that are running hard, that are fighting, putting heads together to make sure a child goes to sleep in a bed. If you get really honest and specific about it, sleeps in a bed with their perpetrator gone, their offender gone. So thank you for sharing that.
Yes, and it's so important, especially during this time as we move through this pandemic and things are changing by the day, especially when it comes to children learning online, for parents, for teachers. I feel like this is not only focused on teachers, but parents that are being that teacher right now, that is supporting that teacher virtually on those platforms. So I wanted to let you guys know that the fact that you're worried about being a good teacher, and that's in any role, being a parent, being an actual educator, that means that you're already a good one. That means that you're already taking the time to make sure that you're doing your due diligence, making sure that your child is still getting the best education that they can, in a happy, healthy, uh, uh, appropriate way, making sure that they're still getting the appropriate content so they can continue to grow, and be happy, productive citizens in our community. So I know this next slide, you probably have seen these headlines in the news. And it just, when we were sheltered in place and quarantining back in March, it just starts to open your eyes as now that everybody is engaging in this virtual world, in this virtual platform, and all of our kids are at home. What does that mean for abuse? What does that mean in keeping kids safe, for teachers, for parents? So just a few stats right now. Since COVID-19, we know that the simple neglect cases, like maybe a dirty house or, sorry, my skin, it'll come right back. There it goes. Maybe a dirty house or maybe basic needs not being met. Those cases aren't coming in as frequently, but the cases that are coming in are those cases that are very severe, high in maltreatment and abuse. So it's putting a strain on our teachers not being able to have that one-on-one or that face-to-face time as much as they did before COVID-19 has hit the U.S. So we have to take that extra step as parents, as teachers, and making sure that kids are still getting the care that they need, still building on that rapport, even if that's virtually, still staying connected and engaging with students, to continue to keep them safe. And the most recent article, as you can see, is the one at the bottom. It was a Kaufman County child. They were found alone with their mother had passed away in that home. And that report came about because a teacher had this gut feeling, like, hey, something is not going on. These children, depending on their age, they hadn't been logging online virtually. Something is going on. So she relied on law enforcement in doing a welfare check, and it came to find out that the mother had passed away and the kids were there for approximately a week, caring for themselves. So trusting that gut feeling. If it doesn't feel right, question it. Definitely do your due diligence and making sure that even if you're not right, just questioning it. You could be that call, or you could be that one person or that one voice that can keep that child safe. And then with COVID-19, the uncertainties of if schools are going to remain open, especially now that we have jumped into the beginning of the school year and we know it's been pushed back several times, we're using all of these virtual platforms, which is crazy for everyone, not even for students, but for us as staff members, employees, working from home. Me personally being a education specialist, we go out into the community, which is my main role in teaching on child abuse prevention, but now having to adjust with virtual platforms. And I'll let you know, in the beginning, I struggled with it, but I think I mastered some of these platforms. But as teachers and as parents, we have to make sure these platforms are safe. And I know you may have heard also in the beginning of the pandemic that they were having some problems with some of these platforms being hacked, and people taking over those meetings or those sessions or jumping into those classrooms. So it's very important that we stay on top of knowing if that's the correct login, if there's a password, to make sure you have that password and test those things out before the actual day of that assignment or that class starts, making sure that you can eliminate as many technical difficulties. Say, for instance, if there's any hacking or inappropriate content that is on there, you can notify that teacher. And as a teacher, you can make sure your platforms work smoothly and continue to create that structure that you would have as you would in the classroom. So how can you continue to keep your kids safe? If you are a teacher in any role, teaching virtually or on any one of these platforms. So asking those questions and building that rapport, making sure, asking them, hey, how's your family doing? Have you gotten trolls since the last time I seen you? You know, tell me about your day. What's it been since you've been at home? You know, ask those questions, and you know, kids will still tell you everything. They continue to build their rapport, especially if you're that person in their lives that they've known, they trust. Continue to ask those questions, especially to the children who you feel like may have been at risk of any type of maltreatment or abuse in the past, or maybe they have experienced their trauma. Making sure you follow up with those kids as well and asking those extra questions to make sure that, you know, that abuse or that maltreatment is still not going on and all of their needs are being met. So now I'm going to get into some signs of abuse and some cause for concerns when you are teaching remotely and on those virtual platforms. So if you have some children, I would say the number one sign when it comes to any type of maltreatment or abuse will be the mood change, that change in behavior. If you know these kids, if you have a very outgoing child, very engaging, and then they turn into an introvert, they're not engaged, they're not logging in when they're supposed to, or if they are logging in, they're aggressive, they're shouting. Even if you hear some shouting and some disruption in the background, pay attention to those things. So pay attention to if there's any violence, any family violence going on in the house. That is still a part of a form of child abuse that we also have to report that as well. Making sure that kids' basic needs are being met. As teachers, I know there's so many resources out there, especially right now for kids and families. Utilize those resources. Try to get those parents those resources that they need to meet those basic needs of their kids. But if it's kind of like a broken record, like if you're providing those resources for them to utilize, but they're just not getting it, they're still not providing that need, then I would take further measures and maybe calling Child Protective Services, making a report, because we need to make sure kids' basic needs are being met, because we know that once their needs are being met, they're able to perform in school. They'll be able to perform online and still get that great education. So pay attention to any change in performance. Like the one teacher did in Kaufman County, she noticed that the kids weren't logging on. That was a huge drastic change and not a normal behavior for that family. So pay attention to those things. And there's a few more on here, but like I said, that number one sign, that look for that change in that behavior, change in their moods. And also remember to ask those open-ended questions to get a few more information, like we talked in the previous slide. So, but here are some new concerns that we've had since COVID-19, and when it comes to the child paying attention to the virtual class settings. Maybe younger children are having a hard time with their attention span virtually. Maybe that work performance or that work environment that they're in right at that time is maybe distracting. Lack of contact with the caregivers after teachers have repeatedly tried to get in contact with them via email, by phone, by text messages. Continue to monitor that, especially for those kids that you've had concerns about in the past of their risk. And again, just pay attention to those significant changes of their moods and behaviors while they're on those virtual platforms in those classrooms. And how are they acting with their peers? Are they being a distraction? Are they causing any issues during the time that they're in those classrooms? And then also I know that some teachers have a lot of things going on. Not only are you teaching virtually, but you're also teaching in person as well. So if you have any children that you are coming in contact with, or that you teach that need any physical assistance, or have any mental healthcare needs or anything like that, pay attention to make sure that their needs are being met. Especially, this is a new time for everyone, but we need to make sure, because they're so vulnerable, that that population of children, we need to pay more attention and making sure that their needs are being met, and then making sure that those environments that they're in are not causing more stress to them. So when it comes to reporting any type of child abuse, if you are any type of mandated reporter, and that's anybody that works in a child serving organization, it is your responsibility to make those calls, make those reports. So we will want you to be their voice. Like, again, you may be that one call or that one person that gets that information to someone that can stop that abuse for that child. So always, we encourage you guys to believe that child. 90% of the time, children do not lie about abuse or what happens. And as Thomas mentioned earlier, these forensic interviewers, these staff members that's working at the Advocacy Center, they are trained to ask the children non-leading and non-suggestive questions so they can get that story about that abuse or that maltreatment out, and we call it the outcry. Also, remain calm. We know that sometimes you are the one that child trusts, and they're going to tell you everything about that abuse. So try to come to a point where you can kind of shut that conversation down, say, thank you for telling me this, but I want to make sure that you're safe when you're not with me. You're so brave for doing this and telling me this information. And then move forward and making a report to Child Protective Services or law enforcement if need to be. And then when you're talking to a child, I know when I said when you're talking to kids virtually, yes, ask those open-ended questions. But when you are faced with the outcry, or a child mentions anything about say they make a outcry of sexual abuse to you, all you need is that who, the what, and the when, if you can get that information. And that's all you need to make a report to CPS and law enforcement. So who it was, what did they do? And you don't have to go into any details of what they did. So you can say, little Susie, she said that Billy touched her vagina. We know that it was Billy. We know what he did. The only thing I would ask that child is, when is the next time you'll see this person? And that way you'll know if that child is in immediate danger when they leave your sight or your care, or if that person is not going to be a immediate threat once they do leave your care. So calling CPS, calling 911 when you feel like the child, especially if the child is an immediate threat, when they leave your care, definitely call 911. All our jurisdictions here in Dallas-Fort Worth area have a child abuse unit that are working these cases, that use our Advocacy Center approach and making sure that that child gets the type of healing and treatment that they deserve. And also, we don't want you to investigate. Don't collect any evidence. You don't have to take any pictures, any text messages, anything like that. We'll let the professionals that are in these roles take care of the investigation. All right, and be a support to caregivers, be a support to the teachers, be a support to the parents, making sure that those daily goals, those assignments and things that need to be done, that they're met. And if that's in the chat rooms, making sure that they're working functionally for your kids as they navigate throughout their school days. Also, follow through with any caregivers that need any extra support resources. That's very important, especially during this time, because we know that so many family lives have changed during COVID-19, and that has come from maybe lost employment, or maybe you have to move in with another family member to help each other out, making sure that the families are able to get those resources that they need. And then if we have a family, if you notice that a family, all of a sudden they're able to get things together and they got a new a routine and structure right now, ask that parent, hey, I see that you were struggling in the beginning, now you got everything together. How are you able to get there? Question, make sure they know if they're using or just met somebody that is they're relying on maybe helping them with transportation or anything like that. Make sure they know who that person is and that are appropriate for their child. And let that parent know, ask questions if you feel that anything doesn't feel right with whoever it is that you brought into your child's life. Question it and try to eliminate that one-on-one time. And always provide any type of internet safety tips that you have for your parents, for your kids, and making sure, even though we can set as many parental controls, we can set filters. As I said, there's people that hack these systems. There's predators out there that want to access kids, and they'll do that through the internet. And sometimes that inappropriate content can find its way through there. So, and then just continuing taking that extra mile, continue staying 3 steps ahead. I know technology is here to stay, especially everyone is using it a lot more in this new day and age. And we know that the internet can be a positive tool, but also making sure that we eliminate the trauma and inappropriate content that could happen online for our kids. So here's a few internet safety tips for kids that you can utilize. So you never want to disclose any personal information with any strangers. That's emails, telephone numbers, addresses. I would even say your Wi-Fi password. Because we don't know what people are doing on the internet if they're using your internet access. So for instance, if someone's downloading any illegal or doing any inappropriate things online, once it's reported, your information is pulling up with that IP address with law enforcement. So I would even say when you get your internet set up with your cable providers or service providers, change that automatic password that they give you, personalize it for your family to remember, and let your children know, this is not a password that we are able to give out unless you give them that permission. And it also for that classroom setting as well, making sure that children aren't giving out any passwords to access classrooms and chat rooms that are specifically for the child. All right, we got a poll coming up.
Yes, I created a poll.
Yes, great. That's a great question, right? This is a great time for this.
Ask. I'm going to let it roll through.
Okay.
Once people finish, we'll kind of maybe discuss it in the end.
Yes, we can definitely do that as well.
Thank y'all.
So also, when you're online, make sure that parents and the teachers know when kids are supposed to be online and they're supposed to be logged in. I know kids before COVID-19 maybe had screen time limitations, boundaries. That goes the same for the schools, the teachers, making sure that kids are able to access if they're able to be on for that period of time. Give them those appropriate breaks as needed, but make sure we know what times we're supposed to be online, and if not, monitor the activity that they're doing. We don't want to share any inappropriate photos to anyone. We know that child pornography is a huge thing, and we know that it happens. Even if you receive that photo or that inappropriate picture, delete it as soon as possible, because that is you obtaining child pornography. And especially if that image, if you forward that image to anyone or forward that image, that could be a distribution of child pornography. So we don't want to post any pictures. We know it's the World Wide Web for a reason. Once that image is out there, it is out there forever until we can get that get it taken down. Also, if any children are being bullied or harassed online, definitely report and block that person. That is a big thing as everybody is online this generation. Not only Sometimes kids, we know back in the day, we only got bullied at school. Once we got home, we got to live that life. But now that kids are online, kids can be getting bullied not only in school, but that follows and carries with them and follows them home. And if that's they're still seeing that cyberbullying going on, they're still receiving those messages. So definitely report that, and also report it on those platforms that those children are cyberbullying that child with. And then also reporting any suspicious behaviors to an adult. So if someone is trying to obtain personal information, a lot of times when kids are online, hackers and predators that are trying to access kids, they like to send surveys or click here and you'll enter in your information here. You can win 3 free online games. Make sure those pop-ups, enable those pop-up blockers to make sure that these hackers can't send any survey information or click here or any distractions while the child is in that virtual setting, in that virtual classroom. So there can't be any chances of any hacking. But I definitely want to end this major part of the child abuse, recognizing and keeping kids safe. Here are some few resources that you can obtain online that can definitely support teachers. They are free, making sure that teachers and families have every resource that they need, and also lean on your advocacy center for any questions and any specific resources that you're looking for. All right, and then I also want to also give you guys this number when it comes to reporting child abuse. Your Child Protective Service intake number is that 1-800 number. If you feel like any child is in immediate danger, please call 911 so they can respond to that. And then also a national reporting. Any questions about the first section of just noticing different things and paying attention to online? And then I'll get into how can we take care of ourselves during this pandemic. So were there any questions, Thomas, as we have been going along? Now that was a lot of information, so please, if something didn't make sense, let me know.
Very good. You're doing a great job.
All right, let's keep it.
Also, so I may be jumping the gun.
No,
Will this
go
information
ahead.
be will this information be presented to attendees watching? And if so, how?
Can this information be presented to attendees?
Yes. So in other words, are attendees able to
Access
get a
this?
copy of this? Yes.
What I can do, Thomas, I can, this is personally, so I'm using this presentation, but I can provide those resources. And also I'm going to follow up. I have some advocacy resources as well that will go great along with this presentation that everyone can utilize and cascade throughout the community.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that leads us into how do we take care of ourselves, right? How do we not only care for our students online, but how do we also balance that fine line in between in taking care of ourselves? So as a helper, I completely understand your internal pulls and worries that you have for your students and focusing on their well-being, but it goes to say, like that old saying, we can't pour from an empty cup. So if you ever rode on an airplane, they tell you to put the oxygen mask on yourself before you assist or help anybody else. And that's so relevant right now in this time because sometimes we're feeling like we are experiencing some lack of motivation. Things are still changing as the days go by, especially with the schools and the learnings and schools opening up or shutting back down. Teachers are having to continue to adjust to that. And not only teachers in the classrooms, but teachers at home. Our parents are having to adjust to that as well, especially when schools are opening up and their kids are going face to face and now they're back virtually adjusting to that. So it's okay, but definitely you have to recognize your history of trauma. Know what triggers you, making sure that you're creating that awareness within yourself. And you can begin rather than being discouraging when you're with their children and working with their children. So know what triggers you. What are your history of trauma that that can affect you right now during this pandemic? Make sure that you're still building camaraderie with your colleagues, with the people you connect with. And if we know that we don't have all of the teachers that are in the break rooms or have the teacher break room, or we're able to get that face-to-face time, but still connect, still engage, because you definitely want to watch out for any compassion fatigue or any burnout that you could be experiencing. And I know it's been a roller coaster since March, and just going into this new school year, ending off the last school year. Not only were we worried about kids missing great milestones like graduations, and having that building those memories with their peers at school and with their teachers, still remembering, identifying what is triggering you during this time, if you have any. And then once you're doing that, understand that with that piece, that your feelings are valid. We are going through a national global pandemic, and that is trauma. It's traumatic for us. So I'm going to use Dr. Bessel Van de Kolk book, and it was The Body That Keeps the Score. I just want to utilize him because he is a doctor that gives out a lot of mental health professional tips, and recently he's been giving out a lot of videos to help us as mandated reporters, as a mental health professional, specifically during this time, as we continue to serve and continue to teach our teachers, and be those still be that service and great teacher that we always want to be. So just looking into that book, The Body Keeps the Score, it talks about how trauma impacts our bodies, our minds, and our souls. He also right here, it says, when traumatized, you're living in a timeless sense of helplessness. So when we think about that, how much trauma is impacting us during this time? Can we recognize those triggers, right? When you're in a sense of helplessness, you're in a place where you're not moving forward. You're not being that curiosity to defeat that fear that you may be having. So we can only control our own actions. So focus on your calm and your sense of agency, thinking about, if you do have those triggers, identify them and then start with addressing those, okay? So again, so when you start to feel that sense of helplessness, that lack of motivation, identify those triggers and move forward positively in addressing that and knowing that for yourself. And then also that'll help you stay out of that helplessness state so you can continue to move forward as we adjust during this pandemic. And then also another quote I would like to use from Dr. Bruce Perry. So I like to focus on those last two sentences. So it says, our minds will focus only on the information that is at the moment important for survival. So fear kills curiosity and inhibits exploration. So again, feeling that sense of helplessness. So remember, when stepping into this, not only we're feeling that, but our students' mindset is the same on what is most important for survival. So they may miss some assignments, they may miss some homework, or missed out on some outings with their friends and things during this pandemic. But does that mean something horribly is happening to them? Maybe not directly, but it's affecting all of us. This pandemic is impacting all of us in our own way. So when thinking about yourself, you got a lot of stuff going on. You're adjusting to the new school protocols, making sure that kids are safe, and addressing COVID-19. So really be honest with, I know I don't know about you guys, but me personally during this time, and still providing the support of child prevention and child abuse prevention in the community, I had caught myself asking, am I really able to honestly and authentically handle this, and adjusting from going out in the community, and now that I'm virtually and adjusting and still reaching that same audience. The same thing for teachers. Now that you're not in the classrooms as much, or you're a parent and you're not in the office, and you are that backup support for your child and the teacher throughout the school day. Think about those situations. Are you able to truthfully handle any type of trauma that you're addressing? And then you guys, teachers, parents are going beyond and above in making this happen for our kids, and making sure that they're still getting that same education, and creating those different classroom settings, changing your homes into classrooms, and making sure that your child has that appropriate and positive setting. The kids, we can't do it without the support of parents and teachers being so creative and making sure they're still able to reach their kids in that great way. So, but also remember, we're all going through a pandemic, and it's hard to survive chaos sometimes. So it's important to take care of yourself. And now I'm gonna get a little sciencey on us right now, but please bear with me. But I'm gonna plug in a TED Talk about the ACE study, the Adverse Childhood Experience Study. If you never heard of it, if you never have seen it or anything like that, please go to YouTube. It's a TED Talk with Dr. Nadine Burton. She gives a great explanation of how adverse childhood experiences and that trauma affects us at our long health outcomes when it comes to the things that we went through as a kid. So think about it. So how trauma affects the brain. So it puts us into this fight, flight, or freeze. So when you're at fight or flight, your response, it gets that oxygen pumping, and those hormones like adrenaline is released into your body. And it's a fast, effective system that's meant to help us survive and when we perceive a threat. So imagine that you are in a forest, right? And you see a bear. Either you're going to run from that bear, or you're going to fight that bear, or you might freeze. But think about COVID-19 being that bear, right? We're in a forest and we are running for our lives. We've been running for months now. And I know that when it comes to our brain, there's a part, the hippocampus, which is the part of the brain that involved in formation of new memories. Sometimes when we are in that fight or flight of adrenaline emotion so long, sometimes our hippocampus goes offline. So we're not able to store those new memories that are coming in like normal, logically, that they would do if we were not in this state of this pandemic. So now they're coming in sporadically, right? So do you ever catch yourself asking, oh man, did I send that email last time? Or did I follow up with such and such regarding this event or anything like that? That's the effects that we're having right now during this pandemic, and our hippocampus is in that fight or flight or freeze stage, right? So this is also happening for our students, right? Like again, we said they're in that survival mode. They're trying to figure out how are we going to get through this new pandemic and all these new changes, all right? And our brain cannot take that overload of those hormones when we're in that freeze response. So we feel helpless and we feel stuck in that situation. And not only do you feel that, but the students feel that same way. So like I told you guys, that those first couple of weeks since we've been working from home, I felt that way, like, oh, I'm in a stuck place. I feel helpless. How am I going to still reach the community and give this important information out and still reach the people and keeping kids safe and let them know that we're still here, we're still that resource. So but also I like to point out that third bullet, every behavior meets a need. So when I tell you about paying attention to those behavior changes with your students and kids that are online, go to why are they acting like that? Is a need not being met, and that's why it's causing them to act that way? So definitely key into that. And also the memory iteration, extended period of safety is necessary. We all know when we feel safe and secure, we're able to excel. We're able to do things that will be in a structured manner for ourselves. So knowing that sometimes it's going to take us some time to retrain as we move through this pandemic. With our memory, with that hippocampus coming offline and storing those memories as they should logically. So here are some effects of trauma, but I want to give you all a minute to look at that. Look at those different effects of trauma. And I know if you're a teacher, you're probably like, oh, I can point some of these out to some of my kids, but I want you guys to take a moment to think if you are experiencing any of these things. Take the time to, if you felt any of this, anxiety, maybe fear. I know I felt that, especially in the beginning of this pandemic, adjusting to what was going to be the new normal. I pay attention to those and identify them and know them within yourself, so you can start addressing that and starting that self-care awareness for yourself. Again, we definitely have to take care of ourselves so we can continue to pour into our students. So what do we do to take care of ourselves, right? We know structure is very, very important. We know that with boundaries, with expectations, we know that it's predictable. We know that we can get that goal met, we can get that job done. And that's how we felt before this pandemic hit us. And now we're all searching for that new structure. We're searching for that new normal. So know that you have to be ready to set those boundaries and moving forward in this new world. So we know that everybody is plugged in online. We know everybody has to give that extra effort now that we're continuing to adjust. But remember, setting those boundaries, is it important? Say, I do it all the time. You take your cell phone and say, hey, I'm gonna answer this quick email really quick because I just got it in, and it won't take too long. Setting those boundaries, because we're creating a new normal for ourselves in this pandemic, and that could be engaging online for long periods of time. I know sometimes I get tired of sitting in the same spot. So one thing that I did to change and set boundaries is I created a work from home space, got me a comfortable chair. So those were some of my triggers that I could address within myself and moving forward. So I'm able to provide the best service as I'm working throughout the day. Same thing for teachers. Setting that boundaries. I know there's a lot of Zoom meetings and a lot of on calls with follow up with teachers, with kids, following up with their parents. But set aside that alone time, that personal time, and engaging into something where you can feel a sense of strength and agency within your body, and understanding that if that's mastering something that you want to do, you've always wanted to volunteer, engage into a agency that's have a volunteer opportunity online. If you wanted to finally get into that cookbook that you've been having sitting up on your shelf forever, get into those things to help yourself cope through this time and still be able to stay out of that sense of helplessness, but master this new routine and new structure for your life. And then here in this slide is just some more information about some things that you've probably seen as a teacher as a sense of encouragement for self-care and things that you can do. I know that I like journaling, not just writing things down, but talking to people, if that's sending your opinions about a specific topic that you're interested in. Definitely take the time to find what helps you in addressing your self-care. And make sure that you step back and just do the things that you enjoy to do, especially during this time. We're all feeling the same way, the same stress, the same pressures during this pandemic, especially as things change. But do something in the context that make you feel good. And while you're doing that, we talk about self-care, and I like to, a lot of people like to think of self-care as going to the spa, going on a me day, if that's retail shopping or whatever that is. But also, when you're thinking about building self-care, think about your mental health care as well. Focus on resiliency and factors that you can build within yourself that are healthy coping skills as we work through this pandemic. So here are some ways that you can build healthy or build resiliency and those healthy coping factors and skills. It can help our brain retrain with some of these things that are listed. It'll help us getting back into our new normal, getting back into our new groove. Do the things that feed your soul. Continue to build that resiliency. And then once you build up that resiliency in doing these things, all of that is accumulated. So if you are impacted with any type of trauma as we continue to move throughout this pandemic, it'll impact you less. It won't be as stressful because you're continuing to retrain your brain and building your resiliency as we continue to transition into the new normal as things change by the day. But with this other slide, I want to just key in, especially for teachers, on this tweet. It was really, really good. So it says, "Good morning. This is your daily reminder that your worth as a teacher is not measured by how well you're doing with distance learning. This isn't teaching, it's crisis management. You are worthy and you are enough." Everybody is facing a crisis management at some point. And if that's parents to being a teacher, being mom, still being a financial provider, teachers being in the classroom, also being virtually, still having their own lives going on. Know that you are worthy and you are enough, and that you are continuing to fight this fight and provide the best education and the best support for your kids, and keeping them safe and making sure that they still have a sense of normalcy as we all continue to figure this thing out. So I want to leave you guys with some more resources that I also provide to Thomas that you guys can use. These are some great mental health resources, some call-ins, and it's okay during this time if you feel that you need something more. If you need to utilize one of these resources, I know, especially being a service provider or being in this role as an educator, as a teacher, we still have a lot of things going on that we have to manage for ourselves that may be impacting us. So it is totally fine that you can utilize these resources. And then I want to also leave you guys with my personal contact information. And I also am leaving one of our therapists that is great. Her contact information is here too, which she was in great efforts in creating this presentation for us today and helping me out with that. So if y'all have any questions, I know I've threw a lot of at you today, but I hope it was some great information to help you through this pandemic and as we continue to move forward.
Thank you so much, Brittany. Let's give Brittany a virtual hand clap. Celebrate her for taking time out to educate us on this night. I know it's been a long night, long week for some of us, but we're never too young, never too old to be educated and learn how we can keep children safe and ourselves safe as well. So thank you, Brittany, for providing your information, your contact information. Please make sure you contact her if you need it, or reach out to me. Brittany and I go way back, as well as Michelle.
Yes.
So it's so good to see you and continue to do the great work that you're doing. And so we look forward to having you back, Brittany. Before we close out, are there any questions by the attendees? If there's not any questions, please contact me and I'll shoot it over to Brittany. Her team will definitely serve you the best way they can. So again, I just thank you all again for tuning in with us on tonight. This recording has been recorded, and dispersed it out. If you need it, just shoot me an email. If you missed it, came on late, that's okay. We have a recording of this presentation if you'd like to hear more about it. But please check out the Dallas Children's Advocacy Center. They're located right here in Dallas. Please check it out. If you are seeking resources, or you may not know the best way to report suspected child abuse, please contact our education team, and they'll do their best to guide you along that journey. So continue to grow the community. Brittany, do you have any lasting word of encouragement for us, or before we sign off?
Just final thoughts. Thank you for everything that you guys are doing. Without the community, there will be no advocacy center. You guys are our front lines. You are there to make those calls into CPS, law enforcement, so we can all work together and keep the kids safe. So again, like Thomas said, if y'all need anything, please lean on us. I'm definitely going to provide those resources to him so he can cascade those to you all as we utilize them as we need throughout the community. But thank you again, and thank you for the time tonight.
Awesome. Thank you so much, all of you. We'll be back on next week to talk grief and loss, learning how to manage grief and loss with Shemai Williams. So we look forward to seeing you all back the next time. Brittany, take care. All the attendees, take care. Have a safe Thursday night and enjoy your weekend. Stay safe and stay masked up, y'all. Stay away from that Rona. All right. Have a good one.